All right, Greg Mohr, franchise maven. I appreciate you joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you on. And I know we were talking pre-roll there, just about your where you live, which is interesting in and of itself. But I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more of your background, which will probably be as interesting, if not more. So, without me butchering it, Greg, I'll turn it over to you to do a quick intro, and we'll take it forward from there.
Thank you for having me today, Davis. I really appreciate it. What I do for folks is folks are looking, they come to me when they're looking to go into business, specifically looking to go into business for a franchise on that one. They don't necessarily know which franchise they want to get into, but they do know they're looking into franchising. It's kind of a complicated and a confusing process because there's so many to choose from. I
Yeah.
simplify that. Simple three-step method, walk them through it, find out what it is they're trying to accomplish. They want to do it full time, semi absentee, all that good stuff. Skilled workers, non skilled workers, brick and mortar, service industry, all sorts of different questions because there's a lot of different things to consider. And then I do all that for them. I find franchises for people that fit their needs.
Yeah. Amazing, Greg, and thank you for the background. And I know we haven't had a chance to get to know each other at length. So for the audience and for Greg, right, I'm a business owner myself. Started a company called Junk Raider 6 years ago. Does exactly what it sounds like, junk removal. And we earlier this year franchised it and are looking to go city to city and open up Junk Raider in various locations across the country. And so my whole year, Greg, has really just been knowledge capture. Right? This is the first business I've started and owned, and certainly the first business I've ever franchised, and I've never been a franchisee. So both sides of the coin for me are very new, and as you can imagine, it's been a whirlwind of just getting to know terms and who's who and how everything works. And so, um, with that, I think, Greg, just to start, what is because for me growing up, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I knew I maybe wanted to get into business ownership. I got into sales. So I've been doing technology sales for a while, and I knew that was sales is always kind of the lifeblood of a company. And so I wanted to start there and kind of figure out what path I wanted to go if I wanted to stay in the corporate world. But when somebody would mention franchising to me back in the day, I'd think Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, right? A lot of like retail brick and mortar franchise concepts. But if you and you know your way around this world way better than I do, and I don't know the statistics, but it's somewhere north of 3 or 4 thousand brands that are existing today that folks could, if they're interested in business ownership and they don't want to start something on their own, they want to buy into a brand as a franchisee. There's a lot to choose from. So, can you kind of talk us through your process from initial contact with somebody looking to get into this space as a franchisee, all the way through to potentially placing them in a brand? Like, what does that look like when they're working with you?
Oh, absolutely, Davis. Thank you for that. The
Yeah.
first thing we do is that people usually just schedule a call with me. Simplest thing to do. And then what we do is I want you to ask anything you want to about me and about franchising. Get to know me, get to know franchising. Whatever questions you have, get them answered. I'm not looking to sell anybody on the fact that franchising is the greatest thing since sliced bread, since for some it is not on that one. So I'm going to get your expectations out there right away, make certain that we're on the right track, and really get you more comfortable working with me and getting to know me. So first phone call, get to know me, everything there is to know about me. Ask me about franchising. I'll ask you what your expectations are, what you're looking to get out of it, making certain that we're on the right track and your expectations aren't like I want to be a millionaire in a year. It's probably not going to happen. That
Yeah.
sort of thing. Uh, this then what I'll do is I will send out an email with a matrix of business types in there, also with our due diligence process in there. So get people familiar with the different types of franchises that are out there, different types of businesses that are out there in the world today. And what we're going to go through to not only find you franchises that are a good fit, but then go through the process of investigating them to make certain that they're a good fit for you. And then I'll also send a link to a questionnaire. You fill out the questionnaire, gives me a lot of great background information on yourself. I ask everybody to brag about themselves because I use that questionnaire to introduce you to the franchises that you show an interest in. What we do on that next phone call then is we're going to go through that matrix of business types. We're going to go through that questionnaire, and I'm going to be getting to know you. So half hour, it's all about you. Where have you been? Where are you at? And where do you want to be over the next 5 to 10 years? And we'll go through a multitude of different questions. As you said, Davis, when we're driving around, we all see the brick and mortar places. Everybody sees those. We all see it. That's what we think about. Most of the people that come to me are thinking about that as well. They're thinking that, the McDonald's, Taco Bell, Amco, Meineke,
Yeah.
Great Clips, Supercuts. That's what people think about. What they don't always realize is how many great services industries that are out there, but they're a lot less of an investment. And it doesn't matter which one you choose, brick and mortar services, you could still make about the same amount of money in each one. So that's
Yeah.
what our next phone call will be, the second one, where I get to know you as much as possible. Well, once I've done that, gathered all sorts of great information, then I take a day or two to go through all the information I gathered, and then I come up with 5 to 10 opportunities that I know these franchises are looking for people like you because I've already talked to the franchises, finding out who they're looking for in a successful franchisee. So all I need to do from you is find out what are you looking for in a franchise, and that's where I can do the matchup with. So I'll come back with about 5 or 10 different opportunities. I'll send those little one pagers out to you to have a chance to look them over, get familiar with them. Then what we'll do is we'll get back on the phone a third time.
Hmm.
We'll go through those opportunities, talk through them all, and try to narrow those down to 2 or 3 that you are looking at and saying, I could do that. That looks
Yeah.
interesting. And then I put you on the phone to the franchisors and I walk you through the franchise investigation process itself,
Got
all the
it.
way through till whether or not you determine you want to get into franchising in the first place and didn't get scared
Yeah.
away by that or just said, not for me. And then determining which franchise is best.
Yeah. How often do folks show up on your doorstep, Greg, whether that's a web lead or a referral, and they're coming to you and saying, "Hey, Greg, I've already done a lot of due diligence, and I know I want to look at these two, three, five brands." Is that often, or is it more so the folks who just know they want to get out of corporate America or whatever, and they want to get into the franchise space, and they're really looking to you to be, kind of their advisor and take them through what you just mentioned to us? How often is it, that person versus the person that's like somewhat further along in that process?
More often than not, Davis, it's people that are not very far along in that they're either, like you said, corporate refugees, or they're just looking for something semi-absentee part-time. Majority of people
Yeah.
like that. I probably 95% of them are like that. About 5% have got kind of an idea of where they want to go or what industries
Yeah.
they want to get into.
Gotcha. Okay. And I'm curious because you obviously just listening to your process, you have a lot of effort allocated on you're like a real estate agent, right? You work but until you get paid, and there's not a biweekly paycheck coming in, and your pay is based on the success that you do and work with brands. I guess the question is like, what's the success rate that when you are ready to place a candidate for whoever, and you introduce them to the franchisor, what's your success rate in getting that candidate ultimately placed with brands relative to your effort? You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if you take somebody all the way through, and I'm sure you weed out as many people as you think, oh, this is a good avenue for you. You should consider franchising. And others, you kind of help them understand the business. And sometimes you're like, hey, just candidly, doesn't sound like you're ready for this, or you're not built for this type of business ownership. The ones that you do push through, what's your success rate in the franchise or accepting that candidate and ultimately awarding them a unit or a territory?
Success rate in awarding them a unit is pretty darn close to 100% on that.
Yeah.
Once they start talking with the franchisor and they go all the way through the process, um, very seldom have I ever had anybody in the 10 years, over 10 years I've been doing this, have the franchisor say no. It happened a couple of times,
Yeah.
but generally it's about 100%. Uh, Once people start talking to the franchises, if you take a step back from there, then it's about 1 in 4 people will actually decide they want to get into franchising
Yeah.
from that. So every 4 people I introduce to a franchise, or one will do it, and that's probably a very good high average as far as
Yeah.
consultants go. There's not too many consultants out there that do that well. There's a few of us out there that do it, and it's interesting that over the years we'll get a lot of people that will come to us and say they're interested in franchising. They'll shoot me out an email, send me out a text, but over the years, only about 1% of people who actually have considered it or saying it, or go to my website or download my book. Um,
Yeah.
Only about 1%. I mean, if you get into a franchise, you're in the 1% club out there on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's phenomenal to hear because I I didn't know this certainly until I got into this whole world and started learning about it. But it's a volume game, and I don't mean to say it's a volume game in the sense that like nobody gets the attention they deserve, but there's a lot of just unqualified and bad leads out there from folks that maybe they're laying in bed one night and they're pissed off at their job that they just, came from, and they're surfing the web and they submit these inquiries. Maybe it's to me directly as a franchisor, or they land on your page and they submit it to you. But there's so many leads that come through all sorts of channels to all of us franchisors, consultants, so on and so forth, that there's a boatload of legwork on the front end and through a sales process that like people just don't see. It's kind of like I tend to compare it to real estate. Like they get a lot of these types of leads too, and it's like who do you ultimately land on to place and to work with, right? It's a very fine line that you have to balance your time with, and I'm sure given your experience, kind of gotten that nailed, fine tuned. It's just no question there. Just thought it's interesting, but what are some of like what's like a 1 to 2 aha, common aha that people have with you when they just start to talk with you about franchising and learn about the options out there within the franchise space that they maybe didn't know about coming into it? Do any come to mind of just like folks are always surprised to hear about this when I mention it, or this, or whatever the case may be?
They're surprised, Davis, that the service industry is a low investment and they can actually potentially make a six-figure income out of it. They're
Yeah,
always thinking about having to spend, $500,000 or something like that on a restaurant
yeah,
or something, or a brick and mortar type place, and they don't realize that they can spend $150,000, invest that into a service industry, and the franchises are going to give them a big enough territory where, yeah, you have the potential if you work it to get out there and make a good six-figure income on that. People just don't
yeah,
realize that that's available to them out there. That's the biggest aha that I
yeah.
get from it.
That makes sense. I'm in a lot of like Facebook groups that I've just gotten involved in again in the last 12 months, and a lot of like for sale by owner groups. And a lot of people post in there like, "Hey, I'm looking for this type of business, whatever the stats are. Looking for top line 1 million, 300,000 EBITDA, looking for, a home service based business in East Tennessee, whatever their criteria are." And they almost always end it with no franchises. And I'm like, after I've now learned about it, I'm like, why no franchises? Like the success rate with a franchise seems a lot, I don't want to use the word cheaper, but a lot more cost effective, right? Versus you going and potentially paying $500,000 or $1 million for that business that you just outlined. Go buy and pay for a $50,000 franchise fee and use this playbook that somebody's built for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years and beyond, that almost guarantees the success if you just follow this and put in the work, and your investment is 50 grand plus whatever it takes to start it up, of course, and run the business. But like that seems like a way cheaper option versus going and buying something for 500,000 or 1 million. So I guess to your point, that it's just an interesting concept. And I asked somebody recently, I was like, do you think most folks have a negative connotation towards franchising in general? Like it's almost like a pyramid or like a Ponzi scheme. And I'm like, it's interesting to get that feedback from folks, because I feel like most people, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of folks, at least maybe in these groups that are into business acquisition and business building and entrepreneurship, almost think of franchising as a negative thing. And I'm like, it's really just it's the opposite of starting a business on your own without it. Like we started Junk Raider 6 years ago on our own. That was a huge risk, and at the time, if I had known the stats about franchising, I might have gone to a 1-800-GOT-JUNK, a Junk King or whatever, and just tried to buy a territory, right? Because 9 out of 10 of those businesses succeed, and 9 out of 10 of the businesses that I started on my own fail, right? We're one of the lucky ones that has made it through, and we're, and nothing's guaranteed. But anyways, that I think it's just an interesting concept. What are some of is there a common trend or a theme, Greg, with the types of folks that come through as candidates that you ultimately place in terms of their profile of, these folks are typically the ones that I work with, and we see success in placing, and they go on to become successful franchisees? Is it the corporate refugee at mid-level manager, VP level? Do you see more trends of like just folks coming out of school, whether that's high school or college, wanting to get into business ownership, or is it really just all over the board with the types of people you work with and that end up being successful in franchising?
Davis, in general, it's all over the board, but more, it's actually, there has been a trend for getting younger people. And I used to, when I work with my marketing people, they would say, what's your ideal client? And I would
Yeah,
say, about 45 on up, male. mid-level manager on up. And since then, it's changed quite a bit since the beginning of the time, a little over 10 years ago when I did it. And
Yeah.
now it's getting down to where my ideal client's 35 and up. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. I get both on that, and of all different types of walks of life on there.
Hmm.
I would say in general, though, still more of the people that have managed others before, especially if they want to do something on the semi-absentee level
Yeah.
on that. I do about 50% semi-absentee, 50% full-time on that. And for the semi-absentee, the majority of those are business owners already, and they want to diversify, or they've been in the corporate world for quite some time and they've actually run businesses within a business on
Yeah.
that. And then the other half are the corporate refugees, and they come from all different walks of life. Some have managed people before, some others have not, but they're really just ready to get away from that corporate world, to do something on their own. And to your point of getting into franchising versus doing a business on your own, the people that have come to me and said that they'd rather do a franchise, the general theme has been, I enjoy working with a team of people. I enjoy having a whole bunch of people that are going to support, being part of a tribe. Uh,
Yeah.
so I know I have somebody to count on to help me out, so I don't have to do it all myself.
Right.
On there, that's
Makes sense.
the biggest thing that I see is just being part of that team, having that whole group of people that are going to help you raise your business up and become successful.
Yeah, I'm interested about the 35-year-old and up demographic, and I have a guess, but why is that tended to be versus anybody that fits these other criteria? Is it because in the corporate world, most 35-year-olds have gone through maybe 5, 10 to 15 years of corporate ladder, climbing, and maybe they reached mid-level, maybe they got to VP, and they suddenly have a light bulb moment, like this is my ceiling. One, but two, I'm still disposable. Like the company could sell tomorrow, and I'm out of a job, or they could cut out, all of my organization. Is that why the 35 demographic is best for your target audience versus anybody below that?
They seem to be the people out there I work with seem to be realizing at a much younger age that this corporate thing is just not something that they want to continue doing for the rest of their lives. They
Yeah.
seem, yeah, they seem to be coming to the realization earlier. Yeah, 10 years ago I was just turning 50 uh,
Hmm.
on that, and then I had set my goal that I when I turned 50 I didn't want to be doing this anymore. Um, but I tolerated it. It was fine for a long time. But people these days, male and female both, at starting at 35, they're starting to look down that line and just saying, 9 to 5 or more,
Yeah.
5 days a week, sometimes more. There's got to be something better out there than that.
Yeah.
And bless them, they're just figuring it out a lot sooner than I did. That going
Yeah.
down the road, that's not the path I want to take.
What are your thoughts as we kind of go into this age of millennials and Gen Z starting to get to that age where like they're out of school, it's now time for the next step, whether that's just getting a corporate job, going into franchising, starting a business on their own. How do you see this progressing over the next like 5 to 10 years, specific to franchising with that age demographic? And knowing what we all know about kind of what their interests are, right? They want to be part of, typically, right? Generally speaking, on the surface, they want to be part of something bigger, right? Money's not always the what draws them to a company, but something that has purpose, something remote where they can be flexible. A lot of digital and technology driven companies they're attracted to. How do you see that impacting the franchising world in a positive or a negative way with just the amount of people that may or may not be interested in kind of these old like boring businesses like junk removal, power washing, pressure washing, restaurants, like I tend to assume that for Gen Zers and honestly some millennials that those businesses aren't attractive because of what they've grown up seeing, right? They've grown up seeing YouTube stars, content creators, and all of that. And that I feel like it's kind of more what they're drawn towards.
Yeah, for the franchising in the future, especially if you're going to get into the younger folks like that, there some of them are going to have to come up with franchises on their own where they see a lot of need for something. Like how to become successful on YouTube. I've got a franchise for that, or something along those
Yeah,
lines. So you're probably going to see some different types of
that's
franchises
interesting.
pop up that are not as uh, not as much of an investment. Because generally speaking, when you start getting into younger folks like that, they haven't built up uh, enough money yet to buy the standard traditional franchises that you see people getting into. Even though it's a lot of service industry, still 150,000 or so investment when you're 20, 25 years old. That might not be entirely doable. So we're going to
Yeah.
probably see some more of those generation folks coming up with some of their own franchise businesses, so they can attract other people that are similar to them, but at a less of an investment, less of a cost
Yeah.
standpoint on that. And I could see him
Interesting.
progressing into putting together, become a TikTok celebrity, and this is my process I'll take you through, and something
Yeah.
like that. So I expect to see some very different types of franchises popping up in the near future.
Yeah. Good points for sure. Talk us through about your process individually, Greg, a little bit about how you attract candidates, right? How are you finding people out in the marketplace? Do you have, I'm sure there's all different types of channels that folks can leverage and are leveraging to bring people to them and generate a pipeline of folks that you can reach out to. What's kind of your MO and your mantra around how you grab leads?
There's many different ways over the years that we've been doing it. A lot of it's the inbound marketing, where you have somebody go out there and find leads for you and bring them in. And in the past, what we've had to do as consultants, we've had to make a lot of phone calls. People would send in, their information to the sites and say, "Yeah, give me a call. I'm interested in franchising." So we did that, and I'm sure this is going to date myself, but we did a lot of the dialing for dollars things. I don't know if y'all remember
Yeah.
back in the day when they
Yeah.
had that radio show, Dialing for Dollars, or was it a TV show? I don't know. But anyway, a lot of that was done in the past, and that consisted of a lot of work calling people up because, like you said, Davis, some of them are just mad at their bosses, and
Yeah.
so they send in their information. The next day, they're like, "Oh no, I'm good now. Everything worked out."
Hmm. Yeah.
What I did was, after so many years of doing this, and people had so many of the same questions, that I just wrote a book on it. I decided I'm going to write a book on how I walk people through my process, some real world examples of some of the people I worked with, and my step by step process, and what I go through, and what you can go through on your own if you want to. Basically,
Yeah.
find a franchise for you. Had a book publisher, got that published. He helped me with that, and amazingly enough, I have no idea why, but it made it to the Wall Street Journal bestseller list.
Hmm.
So now, with that book, I've been getting a lot of people, and I do a lot of book swaps with some of the different book funnels with other authors that are trying to get their books out there. We show everybody in our networks each other's books, and through doing that, I've gotten a lot of people that have called me after getting my book.
Yeah.
My book swaps that I do with folks, I usually just send my book out for free. I add them to my email list, and they get a free
Hmm.
copy of the book. And that was 2 years ago that I did that, and now I don't have to do the dialing for dollars anymore. People actually, surprisingly enough, they schedule
Yeah.
calls with me. So through that book, I've been getting a lot of people that have actually just come to me by giving it away to as many people as I can. And now they come to me, schedule calls with me, so I don't have to do the dialing for dollars thing anymore. And that's
Yeah.
where I get actually majority of my leads and keeping me quite busy.
I bet. I bet. Well, looking into 2024 and the economic outlook and all the news headlines and everything that we read about going into a recession, we're already in one, and just kind of the doom and gloom of what 2024 looks like is shaping up to be. Uh, I guess, how is your firm? How are you advising potential franchisees who you still, your pipeline is still full and you're still going to continue to get inquiries and you're going to chat with people? I'm going to assume that they're probably going to ask your opinion and your advice about, hey, is now a good time to even buy into a franchise brand? Like, what's your feedback to those folks about just the year that we're going into, and I guess what we've maybe come out of with COVID, and now we're post COVID, and we're going into everything that's happening in the world. What are you guys kind of advising folks on economically, and how that impacts their decision to maybe buy into a brand as a franchisee?
Whenever the economy drops, I get busier. Simple as
Yeah.
that. If people
Yeah.
start getting laid off, I start getting phone calls and I start getting appointments because
Hmm.
people want to go into business. But they want to go into a business that is not going to be affected by the economy and not going to be affected by COVID.
Right.
So if you're looking for that, and what I suggest is we look at essential services that people need and they'll use all the time. Junk
Hmm.
removal. Everybody needs that. Can't be replaced by Amazon. You can't outsource it to another country. You got to do that yourself.
Yeah.
Plumbing, electrical, HVAC, all the sort of things that people need done on a regular basis. Doesn't matter what the economy is doing. It's broke. It's cluttered. It's got to be
Yeah.
fixed. It's got to be fixed now. On that restoration services, the insurance company will pay for it. So that's even better. So
Yeah.
I would steer people towards those types of industries where they're essential services. They're always going to be needed. Tutoring, senior
Mhm.
care, those sort of things, always going to be needed on that. A lot of the brick and mortar places still did just fine during the COVID thing. A lot of
Yeah.
the fitness ones, restaurant ones, they came up with different things, deliveries. The fitness had online things, so they were still doing good. Struggled a little bit, but still came through good. But if you really want to limit your risk, then go with some of those essential service type businesses.
Awesome. Well, let's end it with this, Greg. What if you could go back to your younger self, whenever that was, 5 years ago, coming out of school, starting your consulting business, and tell yourself one thing that you would maybe do differently, or anything like that? What would that be?
Never get a job. Go buy a franchise. My
I
first
like.
franchise was right in high school. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
my first franchise experience. I got a job at Taco Bell. You know, back in the '70s, late '70s, we all worked at fast food places. Mine was Taco Bell. Ended up working for a master franchisor and didn't know it until I started becoming a manager.
Oh
What I should
wow.
have done is, yeah, what I should have done is just stuck with that. Moved up in the Taco Bell world, and she had 50 of them all throughout the Sacramento, California area. I should have just stuck with that and started picking up some Taco Bells
Right.
and turned into a master franchisor myself.
Right.
So I
I
tell
like that
myself,
feedback.
yeah,
Well, we'll end it with this. Tell us something interesting about Licking, Missouri that we don't know about.
Licking, Missouri. It is on the foot in the foothills of the Ozarks.
Okay.
Absolutely wonderful people out here. If you love going hunting, if you love going fishing, if you love the great outdoors out there, it's absolutely beautiful. It's got 4 seasons. The summers are not too very hot at all. Very little snow in the winter, but we still get some, so you still get the 4 seasons. Absolutely gorgeous in the fall when all the leaves change colors out here. But if you like getting away from things and getting away from it all, come out here, find a house nice and peaceful and relaxing. And we still have great stores around here, so you can still get everything you need.
Amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Well, Greg, we appreciate you joining us. Where can folks find you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Best way to reach out to me is you can go to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchisemaven, MAV as in Victor, EN.com. Email me at greg@franchisemaven.com or just pick up the phone and give me a call at 361 772 6401.
Awesome. We'll be sure to link all of that so the audience has it. And Greg, appreciate the time. It was obviously great to chat with you. And as I mentioned, going through a learning curve myself. So I always like to get the voice of folks that have been in it for much longer than I have. So again, thank you. And we'll let you get back to your day.
Been an honor, Davis. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.